Due to the recently released Vital Bracelet BE's first special selection volume being fairly Digimon Savers oriented, and of course along with running my absolutely dearly beloved IC Digivice pets, I found myself once again succumbing to the urge to rewatch the series of Digimon Data Squad, as it's always been one of my favourites, and I wanted to see how it holds up, and turns out it holds up fairly decently. Now, before I go into why I love Digimon Savers / Digimon Data Squad so much, I once again just want to go over the definition of subjective. These are my opinions. I love Data Squad, and I completely understand if somebody watching Data Squad or Savers doesn't enjoy it and ranks it fairly low in terms of all the seasons of Digimon. I, however, do not rank it low, and I'm going to go over why I personally enjoy the series. I'm not saying that you have to enjoy the series. I'm not saying that you're wrong if you don't like it. In fact, many people don't seem to like Digimon Data Squad. In fact, when I went over the reasons why Digimon Frontier is my least favourite series of Digimon, a lot of people said, but wait, no, that's Data Squad. And that makes it clear to me that a lot of people don't like Digimon Data Squad / Digimon Savers, but these are the reasons why I like Digimon Savers / Data Squad and why I enjoy it. So you're welcome to disagree, agree, or you're welcome to just think that Data Squad is just okay. You're allowed to think that it's mid. You don't have to hate it. You don't have to love it. You can just think that it's definitely a show that happened. That's how I feel about a lot of Digimon. I feel like Adventure is just okay. I feel like Cross Wars is mostly just okay. Young Hunters is okay. I even think that Try overall is just okay. It's fine to think something's okay, it's fine to agree with me, it's fine to disagree with me. Let me know why you disagree or agree with me in the comments, that's fine. I welcome a discussion about differences in opinions, but yeah, these are my opinions. As is the opinion that I don't like Digimon Frontier, you're welcome not to share that opinion. Same goes for the seasons that I do like, such as Atmon, such as Savers. I like those seasons, but you don't have to like them, is what I'm trying to say. So basically, these are subjective opinions, subjective being an opinion of something that, isn't a fact. So, grass is typically green, sky is typically blue. Those are objective things. Those are facts that you can't really argue with. Yes, the sky is sometimes not green. The sky is typically not green. Yes, the sky is typically blue. Yes, sometimes it can be different colors, but typically when you think of the sky, you think blue. Grass, unless you live in Australia, is probably typically green. It's not often green here. It's often brown, except for in winter, obviously. But in any case, subjective versus objective. These are opinions. They are different from yours. That's cool. They're the same as yours. That's also cool. Cool, we've gone over it. Let's go into why I love Digimon Data Squad. So, something else that I want to mention before I go into more about my opinions is that I watched the English dub of Digimon Savers, which is called Digimon Data Squad. Overall, I'm not going to compare the two, being English sub and English dub, too much. In fact, I did this many years ago, 6 years ago almost now. So if you want to hear the differences, it's all available under podcasts on this channel. So check that out if you're interested in the episode by episode, difference by difference run through that I did many years ago in this channel's infancy, just about. So I won't be going over the differences. I just watched Digimon Data Squad, as in the English version, because it's what I have handy. It's what I have on DVD, so I watched that. The Japanese version hasn't had a Blu-ray like Tamers, Frontier, and all the adventure series have as of recording this, so I didn't go around to watching that because it doesn't exist. I only watched what I have legally on hand, which was the DVD box set of the English version. So that's what I watched. I'm not here for the dub versus sub debate. I feel like that's also a matter of opinion. I just wanted to get that across that I watched the dub version, so if there's any weirdnesses and differences that you're noticing about things that I'm saying about Data Squad, it is probably because it's the English dub version, not the Japanese version. However, I have seen the Japanese version before, and I also still like the Japanese version. I just watched this because it's what I had on hand, and I wanted to do this watch through as easy and as quick as possible. I did it in like 4 days because I really just loved this watch through. So mostly the dub is fine. However, it has a few weird issues that I noticed to do with the naming of Digimon. They tend to go like literally, like they would just read out the name, and rather trying to think about what that name is trying to be, they would just write it down. So for Mercurymon, we have Marukimon, in a similar way that in 02 we had Arachnimon becoming Arukenimon. There's also Digimon that are kind of funny. We've got Biospinomon, who is Biosuppinomon. We have Bio-Lotusmon, who is Bio-Rotosmon, and similarly, I think we have Crusadermon, who is no longer called Crusadermon. She's just, instead of Lord Nightmon, which is the correct name, is like Road Nightmon or something. It's kind of weird. That's my main issue with the dub. But, however, I am kind of happy with the dub because it gives Lalamon extra lines, because her mouth doesn't move when she talks, which has got to be an English dubber's favourite thing to do, to just give a character without a moving mouth extra dialogue. Big fan of that. So, I love that. In terms of other reasons why I like it, I'll go a little bit back to the start about when Data Squad / Savers originally aired. So, Digimon Savers originally released at a time where I honestly thought I was too cool for Digimon. And I feel like that's not a unique thing to me. I feel like a lot of people go through the stage, especially when they first become a teenager. I was 13 and clearly too mature for monster shows with toys, so I initially skipped it and didn't actually watch it until I was about 18 or 19, when I was rewatching the rest of the series and catching up with Cross Wars and the newly released Young Hunters. But basically all through high school I had, which is high school in at least my part of Australia is year 7 to year 12, so all through that time I was thinking, I'm too cool for Digimon. I still secretly liked it. I still secretly cared. I had all of the songs from the Japanese version on my iPod Nano, but I made sure to put all the titles and everything in Japanese. Even the ones that had English names, I would try to get into Japanese just by Google Translate, because I didn't want to risk someone picking up my iPod Nano and seeing that I still liked Digimon. So it was like a secret. There's even a moment where I was watching clips from Digimon Frontier, I think it was, because I really liked Frontier sort of back then, and my dad walked in. And I was like, oh my gosh, and I closed everything. So, of course, I'm a teenager, so my dad thought I was looking up something terrible, I bet. And he was like, what are you looking at? And we got into a huge fight. And basically, the fight and whatever he thought that I was looking at was beneficial and better, and I was better off having him think that than the idea of him thinking I was watching Digimon. So that was the place that where my head was at when I was a teenager. I was kind of like, didn't want people to think that I liked Digimon. So unfortunately, Digimon Data Squad came out at a time where I did not want people to think that I liked Digimon, and didn't really watch the series because of that. So that's kind of sad. I remember seeing screenshots and other related images online of the characters from Digimon's 5th season, and at the time, I felt like every Digimon fan when seeing something that isn't Digimon adventure related, and found myself thinking, hey, that's not Digimon. And to be fair, while I typically hate the oh this isn't Digimon reaction to anything that is new in the franchise, in the case of Digimon Data Squad, it does look different from previous seasons. For example, the big one, Masaru doesn't wear goggles, and the cast of characters are a few years older than previous seasons. Masaru and Thomas are both 14 instead of the usual 10 to 11. Yoshino, who is the older character in the group, is 18 instead of being 12 or 13. And Ikuto, who is the kid slot, which is, the much younger kid, is 11, whereas the usual kid slot of the cast had previously been between the ages of 7 and 9. And not only that, Masaru was the same age as Taichi was in 02, but he also looks significantly older than the Taichi that we had in 02, despite being the exact same age. So I can absolutely understand why people would skip the series for a similar reason as people skip Atmon. It just looks a little bit too different. The other seasons are more or less looking the same. Even with Ghost Game, it looks fairly Digimon-y. It still looks a little bit different, obviously, but it looks Digimon-y enough to get people involved. There is also the case of the characters in Ghost Game being the same age or similar age to Masaru and Thomas, but honestly looking much older in Savers for some reason. So there is that. There's a bit of a difference in art style and overall look and feel of Digimon Savers compared to the rest of the franchise. However, Digimon has always been different with each new series, introducing new mechanics and new ways for their digital friends to evolve, so of course, this series being no different to that. And when I did eventually get around to finally watching the series, I was honestly fairly disappointed in myself, as the series really did rocket its way up to being my favourite series of Digimon at the time, not just for how unique it was, but how it felt like it had a slightly older demographic than previous seasons. We have Masaru, whose dad disappears while he's still a young kid, which likely results in him being a delinquent more or less, and is constantly involved with street fights and feels the need to protect his mother and little sister due to his father's absence. We also have Yoshino, who has a pretty glaring inferiority complex, as she feels like she has to compete with her musically gifted older sisters, and felt like she always lived in their shadows, and felt useless compared to everyone else around her. And especially when we have her join the group with the two younger boys, she even feels like she lives in their shadows as well, despite her being the older one. So there is that ongoing theme of having an inferiority complex. Something about Yoshino, Masaru, and Toma they all have is they all feel inferior to other characters at various points, and they overcome it. Masaru feels inferior to his dad. He feels like he's always living in his dad's shadow, even in his own absence. Then we have Thomas, who feels inferior to Masaru, and then Yoshino, who feels inferior to everyone. So it's kind of like an ongoing theme with those characters. Not to mention that multiple characters have actually watched a parental figure die. This is something that's fairly common in most of the cast, and it's kind of sad. Ikuto, or Keenan is known in the dub, has a fairly careless researcher parents, if I'm being honest, who let their young baby near a digital gate in their house, which results in him being raised by Digimon, and this is something that I have, that is an issue with this character. Despite the Digimon around him speaking perfectly, he speaks like your typical raised by wolves wild boy trope. However, the dub does kind of make this fun. He calls humans human, like they're a species of Digimon, and I absolutely love that. Like, me not human, me Digimon! I love that. I love how he says human. That's a gorgeous little touch that the English dub adds. Really appreciate that. But the wild boy trope doesn't really make sense for him to speak in broken English when when all the Digimon around him speak perfect English in the case of the English dub. Falcomon even speaks with like a posh British accent, so I'm not sure why Akuto has picked up very little English from these clearly fluent monsters. So that's something apparently that even in I didn't when I watched the Japanese version of Digimon Savers many years ago, my Japanese comprehension was pretty bad, so I don't recall that being in the Japanese version. Somebody did tell me that he also speaks in broken Japanese, but take that as you will. I can't confirm it because I haven't seen the English sub Japanese version for many years, so I'll have to rewatch it if it ever gets an anniversary Blu-ray box set like the other seasons have. So, in any case, that's Akuto, and then we have Thomas, who likely has the saddest backstory. Thomas watched his mother die in front of him when she was hit by a van as they went to a festival together, but it gets even worse from there. Like, it doesn't just stop there, like, it continues on. His mother was Japanese, but his father is Austrian, and his grandmother is extremely racist, commenting that she doesn't like Thomas's eyes because they're like his mother's, and she doesn't want him to carry her last name because he's Japanese. Surprisingly heavy to bring racism into the show. Frontier did try this almost with Izumi, but they made it more about her feeling more introverted than the rest of the peers. It didn't come across as being a race issue. This one is just straight up a race issue, and it's really kind of dark for what I would expect in what is a kid show. What is a show that I at 13 thought I was too cool for and too mature for, despite being the same age as the characters here. So that's something. Another aspect that I appreciate is that outside of Ruin Mode for Shine Greymon and then the Burst Agumon from the last episode, which I don't count, all characters get the same amount of evolutions. And off the top of my head, the only other series that does this is Atmon. They're all equals in terms of their evolutions. We don't have an extra evolution or extra several evolutions, as is the case with Ghost Game and 02. We don't get multiple evolutions for the quote-unquote main characters, the blue kid and the red kid. So that's something that I do appreciate about the series. So that's good. However, and this is something I should mention, is that they do combine the Burst Evolution episodes of Lalamon and Falcomon into one single episode against one single Digimon. So rather than having one Digimon each, they both have to fight one Digimon between the two of them, and it just feels like that makes them less important than the other characters, but at least they have the same amount of evolutions as the rest of the cast. And there is another aspect of the show that I'm not too super sure on, and it's about whether or not that Chika, who is Christy in the dub, and this is Masaru's little sister, should have had a Digivice, as she did get to be friends with a Digimon. We do see that she has a very strong Digisoul or DNA charge, but then again, we do have a quick shot of the mother of Masaru and Chika pleading with Dats not to let her join, as she has already lost her husband to Digimon, is worried about losing her son to Digimon, and doesn't want to lose her daughter as well. So that honestly, for me, explains why we didn't get an additional Dats agent in Chika joining the team. However, it would have been nice to see that, but I'm glad that the show gave us a reason. If we look at it from the mother's point of view, she would be completely alone if everyone else just buggered off to the digital world. So I'm glad that they had that scene just to explain that she is stressing. She doesn't want everyone to just be lost to Digimon. That is completely reasonable, so I'm glad that they addressed that. Another thing that the show does really well is have a bad guy who is just truly unlikable. Kurata is purposefully annoying and an easy character to hate, while other Digimon bad guys have more or less the similar goal or personality, like Vamdemon is just kind of your generic, he is an evil vampire monster. We have a lot of evil monsters who are just evil monsters. Then we have Kurata, who is just kind of a terrible person. And every time he was on screen, I was like, I hate you so much, Kurata, or I'm annoyed. But that's the way that the show wants me to feel about this character. He is immensely annoying. He is just unlikable. His reaction to seeing basically everything in the digital world was, I'm going to shoot it with my gun, which is not cool. We just make him very unlikable, which is something I really appreciate. He's probably my favourite villain in all of Digimon. Just off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone who I hate more as a character, which, again, I hate him as a character for the reasons that I'm meant to hate him. I don't hate him as a character because the writing annoys me. I hate him as a character because I'm meant to. He is a very unlikable character. Every time he was on screen, I was just like, oh my gosh, Kurata, just leave, go away. But that's how I was meant to feel about this character. So, big fan of that. I do also enjoy the Biohybrid side arc. It's nice to have some fairly unique Digimon with a new evolution mechanic, which is kind of similar to Frontier Spirit Evolution, which is pretty cool. I appreciate that we get the Token Girl's initial evolution to be just a really cool snake, rather than your average fan service Digimon. and even though her second evolution does fit that a little bit more, it's not honestly as sexualized as some Digimon designs, and also the snake is just a sick snake. Very cool. She's also paired off with Toma as they're both geniuses, rather than having her fight Yoshino, or Rosemon in this case, in a cat fight. So really appreciate we didn't just say, hey, the girls should fight each other and then have it a cat fight, or something along the lines of, hey, who's the prettier one, like we have in Digimon Frontier, for example, or like we have in Digimon Adventure, where we have Lady Devimon fighting with Angelomon, later Sylphimon. We're not just pairing off the femme-coded Digimon, we're splitting it up with actual character reasons, like we have Toma, who's a genius, so we pair him up with the genius of the biohybrids. Really appreciate that, rather than doing what other seasons do and just having the girls fight. So I do appreciate that. Savers even does clip shows better than any other series that I've seen. They make Yggdrasil, who is King Drazel, which is really dumb in the English version, explaining why humans are terrible and why the human world should be destroyed to save the digital world. I don't like clip shows. I feel like they're often kind of just silly. We also have an earlier clip show where the kids have lost their memory. I say kids, but they're teenagers. The chosen teens, have lost their memories because of the Men in Black memory wipe thing after they get back from the digital world one time. And they have to have like a mini a recap episode as they come to terms with their memories again when their Digimon show up. So that is done better. The funny thing about the first clip show is that Lalamon's like, we were roommates, and Yoshino's like, roommates? And it just reminds me of that old Vine. I guess you had to be there. So we do have a few clip shows, being two. The second one, I really like the idea of it just being Yggdrasil going over what's happened and why humans are bad. And I do like that. It's better than just like, let's have a lazy clip show for no reason, where we're just reminiscing for no reason. The worst clip show being Atmon's, where it was just a clip show where they're just going through clips. And also Ghost Game had one as well, but it wasn't an actual episode title. It didn't get an episode number. So I think that Data Squad did the clip show better than any other seasons of Digimon at the very least. So big fan of that, and I keep on saying big fan of that, so take a shot every time I say big fan of that. I just really like this series, alright? We also have the ending of the show, which is also fairly enjoyable. And I usually feel like Digimon seasons don't end well. I don't really typically like the endings. They kind of feel like they're just open-ended to an annoying extent. However, this ending is still fairly open-ended, and the ending itself is fairly Masaru-focused. It more or less makes sense for it to be his story. However, despite all this, the characters do still all pull their weight, and the final episode having all the previous humans of the week appear briefly in a very Digimon-esque Billion Ports of Light way. However, this is something I flip-flop about often. Masaru's dad, should he have stayed dead? I feel like it makes sense that he came back so Masaru could go off to the digital world for the rest of eternity, I guess. But it just still feels like a little bit of a cop-out. It makes the moment of his death feel less meaningful. But again, I appreciate that means that Masaru does go off to live in the digital world. In terms of the ending fairly open-ended, it does remind me a lot of Ghost Game, how there's still work to do at the very end of the show, but they're going to go about their lives and have jobs, and then Masaru's just like kind of settling turf wars in the digital world, which is something that I do appreciate. Overall, there's a lot that I love about Digimon's 5th season, and a lot that I enjoy, and there's not too much that I don't like. Since it has been a while since I saw it, I did wonder if it would remain as my second favourite series, and it absolutely held up despite the small drops in animation quality, which is probably one of my only negatives about the series. The animation quality wasn't so good. There was a lot of characters standing against a static background, their bodies static, but their mouths moving. Like, just their mouths. Everything, like, no facial movement at all. eyes weren't blinking, background wasn't moving, they weren't gesturing, it was just their mouths. I felt like the animation sometimes was a little bit weird. There's a few points where characters' physics and their positions don't make sense, but that's honestly the only negatives that I can think of for Digimon Data Squad. The watch through also gave me an appreciation of Digimon like Kamemon and Kudamon, who previously I didn't think much of in my previous watch throughs, and I'm also a big fan of the ever hungry Agumon in this series. So that's basically everything that I love about Digimon Savers / Digimon Data Squad and why it's my second favourite series of Digimon. I really like it. Again, subjective opinion. You don't have to share my opinion there. I just really liked it. And if you have skipped this series and you still haven't watched it, or maybe you didn't finish watching it, or maybe it's just been a while and you're not sure if you still don't like it or not, I really do suggest you go ahead and watch it. However, it being one of the older seasons of the anime, it's not on Crunchyroll, at least it's not in Australia. I believe it might be on Google Play or Amazon rental videos or whatever they call it. So you might have to do a little bit of research about that. I can't tell you exactly where to find it because it might differ depending on where you are in the world. I watched the DVD of it. I know that you can just buy a DVD, so I recommend doing so if that's the only way of watching it, because it is a good show. And even again, the dub's not that bad in terms of as far as dubs go, or at least I didn't feel like it was that bad. So overall, those are my thoughts and opinions, so let me know your thoughts and opinions about Digimon Data Squad. Don't tell me why I'm wrong, but you can tell me why you disagree with me in the comment section below. You can like this video for giving shows a chance, because again, I skipped this when I was a kid or a teen, and I'm glad that I later went back to watch it and it didn't just stay as this skipped series, because I would have been honestly missing out. So you can have, I said comment, yes I did. I said like, yes, so the next step in the like, comment, subscribe is to subscribe if you haven't already. I'm still trying to get to 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so please subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have subscribed, tell your friends, tell your family, tell that guy in your neighborhood who keeps on punching literally everything. Again, that's maybe another reason why I like it. It's more shonen than the rest of Digimon. So yes, like, comment, subscribe, etc, etc, and of course I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!